Hi, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World, and you saw this week that there was this show that was created by Mona Scott, who created the show Love and Hip Hop, and the show's called Sorority Sisters, and a lot of people are really upset about the show. They saw the previews. They felt the previews were pretty ratchet. A lot of our readers were really upset, and I wanted to kind of dig into this a little bit. I have my own feelings of this, but I'm not Greek. So I reached out to Miss Maria Lloyd from idatedaily.com. That's idatedaily with an I. And she's actually a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, and she has some strong feelings on this portrayal of Black Greek life in a reality TV show context. So the first thing I want to do is I want to welcome Miss Lloyd. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing really well, really well. And now I see your hat. It looks like your hat's pink and green, or am I colorblind? Is that?
No, you're absolutely right. It's pink and green. So I figured,
Ah,
hey, we're talking about sororities. I'm in a sorority. Let me wear my little hat. But I'm actually not going to keep this on. I just wanted to show it
ah,
off. I'm excited
okay.
because I just got it. So,
Okay, nice hat, nice and fly,
well,
nice,
thank you.
very
Thank
nice.
you.
Yeah, well, and it's funny. I had to be careful in Greek conversations. So even though I didn't pledge, I mean, my sister's an AK, and my brother's an Alpha, and we got Greeks all through our family. Mostly AKs and Alphas, but I think we got a Delta. I don't know if I have any Kappas in my family. But anyway, or Qs or anything else. But anyway, I want to ask you this. So when you heard about this show, when you heard that Mona Scott was going to do this. What was your first reaction before you even saw the trailer, before you saw what the show was all about?
First reaction was, uh-oh, because anything that Mona is behind, I know is going to be toxic. I mean, Mona, in my opinion, she is cooning for cash to no end. I mean, it's kind of pitiful at this point how she literally just continues to go out of her way to exploit anything, attached to the African American community for some cash. So that was my first thought. I mean, I already knew it was going to be a travesty because Mona is clearly a self-hating coon.
Oh, you said a self-hating coon. Wow, that's pretty loaded loaded language there. So what makes you feel this way about Mona? I mean, she's in the entertainment business. She might say, "Look, I'm making money. I'm a black woman who's succeeding. All the images in my shows are not that bad. Or some of them are bad, right? But she would say maybe, look, but I also showed something positive last week or whatever. Do you think that there's any sort of justification for the way Mona does business and how she succeeds? I mean, do you think? And in fact, I will say this. You know, I've seen people who are members of sororities who love all of Mona's other shows when she's degrading other people, but when she jumps into the sorority space, then suddenly they're saying, "Oh no, we're not going to allow that." Why do you think that people are kind of changing their tune on this particular issue?
Well, I definitely think it's a little hypocritical. But I will say that with the sorority piece, with her jumping into the sorority space now, you're kind of messing with something that's been a little sacred, or that is sacred. So when sororities and fraternities were first founded, I mean, this was in the early 1900s. So Black people did not have many rights or anything at that point in time. And so they were formed for, of course, scholarship. So, helping and supporting each other academically, and then also community service. And so when you're someone like Mona, who, whatever she touches turns toxic, yeah, you have reason to be concerned when one of the sacred organizations in the African American community or sacred institutions within the African American community is now being exploited on a white owned mainstream network for cash. It's definitely reason to be concerned. But to your point, I do agree that it is a little. It's interesting that the same people who are criticizing her for touching into or stepping into the sorority space have remained pretty quiet when she, did her love and hip hop shows. So personally, I'm not a fan of anything she does, but I do think that people should hold her accountable just altogether because her shows are just a mess.
Hmm. Well, I looked up Mona here, and it looks like some of the shows she has created. She doesn't have an extensive kind of background. It looks like in
Hmm.
when it comes to creating TV shows. I mean, the only ones that I see that are under her entertainment company, Mona Me Entertainment, are Love and Hip Hop New York, Love and Hip Hop Atlanta, Love and Hip Hop
Hmm.
Hollywood,
Right.
Chrissy and Mr. Jones, the celebration of probably one of the most toxic and sad relationships I've ever seen. This is Hot 97, which it is what it is. The New Atlanta, whatever that is, and K Michelle, My Life. And that's interesting that she did a show for K Michelle, but K Michelle actually really went in on Mona about the show. Did you see what she said about the show by chance?
I did, and I think that's funny too. I mean, now granted, in K Michelle's defense, she did say yes, she acts a fool on TV, and it is what it is. But she doesn't do it sporting wearing sporting the Delta letters, and so But even still, I still thought it was funny. It's like what's the little saying, the pot calling the kettle black or whatever. It's like, really, like, you of all people are going to criticize this show when you are known for acting a damn fool on national television. So yeah, I did see K Michelle's remarks, or listen to her remarks regarding the show. And yeah, I think it's just really interesting how people are being very selective about their criticism when it comes to Mona's work. But again, I can kind of understand, just because sororities and fraternities have always kind of been considered a sacred, sacred institutions in the African American community. But still, Mona makes her money by exploiting toxic relationships in the African American community. I mean, as if we already don't have enough to be worried about with rap music. Now you're infusing television to basically support the horrible lyrics that the youth and everyone else in the nation in the world are listening to. So I just have a problem with Mona's work in general. It's very toxic.
Hmm. Okay, I'm about to keep it 100 too with you. I don't know if you uh, if you were able to unearth my disguise quickly, but I asked you some questions that were critical, but honestly, I was trying to be a devil's advocate. Personally, I think that Mona Scott is she's kind of the female world star hip hop of entertainment. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like, if you really think about her influence on culture, I mean, I see little girls emulating some of the stuff they're seeing on Love and Hip Hop. I talked to a young lady about her relationship once. She was asking me a question about the man that eventually became her baby daddy, and I was giving her relationship advice. And I remember explaining something to her about men and some of the things that can go wrong. And she says, "Oh, like that time on Love and Hip Hop when Jim Jones said this to." To Chrissy, and I was like, yeah, like that. But it was sort of like, wow, she really is looking at these shows as a context to understand relationships and love. And that's when I realized how dangerous it was. I mean, and
Yeah.
eventually the guy that we were talking about, who was absolutely just not a good man for her. I didn't want to say, I didn't want to be mean, but I didn't like anything about this guy. That ends up becoming the father of her child. So literally,
Mm.
a human being is now being born, in a very unhealthy context. In large part because the mother didn't know how to pick a good man, right? So now we can't put all this on Mona Scott,
Right.
right? I mean, there are a whole lot of other influences, but it is interesting when you really just consider the fact that hip hop culture is very powerful, and
Hmm.
so when you're pushing that culture forward, and the reason I compare Love and Hip Hop to World Star Hip Hop is because Love and Hip Hop isn't really about hip hop all the time. I mean, it's about hip hop culture, not so much
Right.
hip hop music, right?
Right.
Well, World Star Hip Hop is not just hip hop music; it's hip hop culture,
Right.
right? And you know that now, unfortunately, because hip hop has become so co-opted by big corporations, big racist corporations that want us to be coons and idiots our whole lives.
Right.
Hip hop culture has just become very toxic and unhealthy in general. That's not true hip hop culture, but that's the hip hop culture that's being exposed in mainstream media. So when you talk about Mona Scott, it seems to me that you can't just stop at Mona, right? We have to look at
Right.
who's Mona's master, who's paying the money for this black woman to exploit the black community and put all this imagery on TV that's making black people look crazy, feel crazy, act crazy. I think that's where all this has to go, right? Do you agree?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm very critical of Mona, but I mean, of course, we know who's funding her projects. You know, it's no secret. VH1. Well, who's VH1? What company owns that company? Viacom. You know, so yeah, I mean,
And they
she's
also
absolutely
own BET, Viacom
yeah, they
Discontinued.
also own BET. That's correct. So, you know, I guess the reason why I'm so critical of the Mona Scott types is because to me, you know, you expect someone who is not within the black community to not do well, like to not do good for the black community. But it's another thing when another black person goes out of their way to exploit or, you know, whatever, have a negative impact in the community. And I think that's where you see my frustration. You know, it's like, man, really? Like, I mean, you're a black woman, you know, why would you, I don't care how much money you're making, but like, why would you think that this is okay? All of the fighting and the just ignorant behavior that is often displayed in her television shows. I'm just like, why would you think that's okay as a black woman? As if black women and men don't already have it hard enough with mainstream media, you know, the news every time a crime is committed. It's always a black person's face on a violent crime when we know that black people don't commit crimes more than anybody else. It's just for some reason we're always pathologized in mainstream media and our images are always displayed when there's something bad going on. So I guess I'm just frustrated that another black person would accept a paycheck from a white-owned mainstream media company to exploit their people. It's very frustrating, you know. And I think it's time that these people they need to be called out. We need to stop supporting these images. So that's why I I actually think it's hypocritical for some people to get upset about this show and not Love and Hip Hop, you know, that brand, because both of them are toxic. Let's not just attack this one just because it's targeting, you know, for sororities. Let's talk about Mona's platform as a whole and how toxic it's been for our community.
Hmm. Well, you know, I think that you're absolutely correct, and you said a great word at the end of your sentence. You talked about community. Now, here's my theory. My theory is that you're always going to have a sellout, a traitor, or somebody who's going to seek to exploit the misery in the black community. There's always going to be a
Mm-hmm.
black person out there who needs the money bad enough that's going to say, "Look, I'll sell. You know, whatever you need me to do, I'll do it." And in fact, the more unity you have in any collection of people, the higher the bounty is to find that sellout. You know,
Right.
even during the American Revolution, Benedict Arnold got hooked up. I'm sure to go and do what he did. You know, to the to the American soldiers. Now here's the thought that I have on this. Because you know that the reward for selling out is really high, because you know somebody will always be willing to sell out, the onus is not always on the individual who sold out to hold it down. I think the onus is really on the community to make
Mm-hmm.
sure that when that when that person sticks his head up and says, "I want to take that money," we all take him down. We deal with that, right?
Absolutely.
It's the
Yep.
community that holds that together. You create that stigma that says, you're not doing this to our people. You're not doing this to our children.
Right.
And I think that's what you're seeing. I mean, I think that you're seeing, and what I would love to see is to see this kind of happen broadly. I mean, we're all in the same fraternity. We're all in the same sorority, right? So, the same way you see AKAs and Deltas and in other in Kappas and Alpha, everybody kind of coming together to deal with this.
Mm-hmm.
I think if we do that as a community on every important issue, we can win a lot of fights this way. Because I really believe that this is going to be a fight that Mona Scott will not win. I believe that they are going to chop this show. I think
Mm-hmm.
the advertisers are going to say, "Look, we don't want nothing to do with this." I think the organizations are not going to let up. The petitions are going to continue. But the question is, why can she get away with this when it comes to Love and Hip Hop, but can't get
Right.
away with this with Sorority Sisters? Because I think if that same pressure is put on Love and Hip Hop, that same unity is shown, that same consistency and persistence, then we could deal with all of this mess. Because I
Right.
mean, unfortunately, Mona's shows so far, it's like feeding our kids roach spray every day. I mean, it's literally the
Mm-hmm.
most toxic, disgusting, unhealthy stuff imaginable. And VH1 does not have to be this ratchet to make a dollar. They can
Right, that's
make
true.
money, right? Because think about it, Bill Cosby, God bless him, the guy's just in a whole mess right now. We know that. We know Cosby is who he is and has done what he might have did. But when he did created a different world, I'm sure there were other show ideas on the table they could have created that would have made more money for being a little more ratchet. But somebody there, maybe it was Cosby, maybe it was somebody else, said no. We want to make our money by building our people up, not make our money by tearing our people down. And as a result, you saw people started to want to attend HBCUs and wanted to go to college because they were watching Denise Huxtable at college every week. So I would just say, to Mona Scott and whoever, look, you got talent, you have an opportunity, but you cannot forget about where you came from as you climb your way to the top. Because what's going to happen is you're going to end up on top of a pile of money, and your community will be devastated because you were too selfish to give a damn about anybody other than yourself. That's all I got to say. I'll let you get the last word.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think, um, you know, her kind of doing this black sorority show. I think what you're seeing here, and it just came to me as you were speaking, is a little bit of black elitism. Did I say the word right? I always mess the word up. But anyway,
Or elitism, same thing.
yeah, thank you, elitism.
Uh
Thank
huh.
you. And the reason why I say that is because, as we were saying, why is it that people don't have an issue with love and hip hop shows, but this one is an issue? And I think that's because in the black community, you have a lot of the us versus them, right? So I'm in a sorority, and you're looking at the women on Love and Hip Hop probably never stepped foot in a college, with the exception of K. Michelle, which is really interesting to me. But anyway, most of them are not really college educated people on the show. So I think for the quote unquote black elite, or those of us who, have gone to college and feel some type of way, feel like we are above the hood stuff, we can watch and when I say we, I'm just speaking in general, not myself, but we can watch Love and Hip Hop and say, oh, that's them. I'm laughing at them. Not realizing that really we're supporting a broad imagery of Black America. When a white kid or a Mexican or whomever tunes in and watches that, or they see clips of this on the internet, they're not thinking, oh, that's the ratchet Black culture. They're thinking this is Black culture at large. So I think that's what we're seeing here is it's, this us versus them thing. And to your point, we absolutely need to come together and just stop all of it. And yeah, I mean, so that's all I have to say.
All right, all right. Well, I agree with you. I think it's going to be interesting to see how it evolves. From what I saw, two corporate sponsors have already dropped the show, Carmex
Good.
and Hallmark,
Great.
and I imagine others are going to follow. It'll. I can't wait to see how this plays out. I'm sure Mona will make her adjustments, but it'll be interesting. Well, thank you so much, Miss Maria Lloyd from iDateDaily.com. I really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you. And I'm with Your Black World too. So,
All
let's
right.
not forget. Yeah, I'm with Your Black World.
Power to the people. Power to the people.
Yes,
All
indeed.
right, everybody. I want you to go to Maria's site. It's iDateDaily.com. That's iDateDaily with an I. And she writes about all kinds of stuff that has to do with relationships and love, and how to go beyond love and hip hop as your template for healthy relationships. And I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins from Your Black World. And until we meet again, please stay strong, be blessed, and be educated. We are gone. Peace.